BA 301 week 2. This is where you're actually making some progress on your paper. So before we get started with that though, I have a question for you. What's the best way to get a job? I mean, after all, the whole reason that you're going to school, presumably, is that you're preparing for a career, you want to get a job. Well, certainly, you can go to a company you're interested in, say Nike, you can look for jobs on their website, or you can search job boards, monster.com, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, all kinds of them. Or you can even go to job fairs they have around. And I know some people that have landed a temporary position as a company as a way of getting their foot in the door. Or the last one, you can network. So what's the best one to use to get a job? By far and away, networking. You know, there's over 80% of the jobs that are filled are never posted on a job board or advertised at all, period. So 80% of those jobs are being filled because an opening comes up within the company and someone knows someone who might be interested, and they contact them, say, hey, would you be interested in coming in and applying for this job? So your best way to find a job is through a personal network. Now here's the challenge. Certainly in the business world, the best way of networking is LinkedIn. That's what's used by most people. However, the problem is, to be really efficient and successful with your network, you need to have at least 1,500 people in your personal network. And that takes a lot of time to build 1,500 contacts. And as a new student, how do you possibly know 1,500 people in the industry that you're going to? Well, I'm going to give you a free way to instantly grow your LinkedIn network. My personal LinkedIn network has over 30 million connections, first degree, second degree, and third degree connections. I have, established relationships and connections all around the world in virtually every job and, category within an organization. And by just joining my network, you don't get access to all 30 million, but you do get access to my first and second degree connections. So what that means is once you join my network, you immediately will have almost 1,700 second degree connections and over 2 million third degree connections. Now that's a good network to work from, and a lot of the people in my network are HR professionals, recruiters, the kinds of people that you need to, you want looking at your profile on LinkedIn. So all you have to do is create a free LinkedIn account if you don't already have one. Don't bother buying the paid for version. The paid version of LinkedIn is really for recruiters and HR people. But for job seekers, the free version is just fine. Create your free account and then search for my name, Paul Wheatcraft, and then send me an invite asking to join my network. I will accept your request, and instantly now you have a lot of very important people in the industry that are able to see your profile. Now, one thing I'll tell you though is you need to have a really good LinkedIn profile, and a LinkedIn profile is not a resume. It's very different. Go to my LinkedIn page and you will see it is structured very differently. I talk about problems. What do you do when you have this problem? Well, here's what I did. It is not just a listing of work history. You want to be communicating your strengths, your capabilities, what you bring to an organization. And you can search on YouTube, there are lots of seminars and other things on how to build a good LinkedIn page. So anyhow, that's a freebie. Every term I offer it to students, and I will tell you that every term, only about 10% of students take me up on it. I don't know why not. It's free and it will help you in your job search. So I hope that this class is the exception and that the majority of you are going to ask to join my network. Okay, so back to the course material. So your assignment this week deals with doing some summary and some research about the company you selected last week. And that what we've titled this the context and background. So you need to paint a picture of what's going on with the company. So let's go through a few of the things that fall into that category of defining the context and background of your company. So the way to think of this context is really the big picture. You know, you're not dealing with the specifics of the company, you're looking at a much broader. So first thing that comes in there is vision and mission and values. You want to find out, what are your company's values? And then also looking at, what are their strategic goals and objectives? Do they have a 5-year plan, 10-year plan? Now, the important thing here is that they should be specific targets with measurable outcomes. You want to look for that when you're researching, when you're reading about the company. Look for those specifics, not nebulous stuff like, our strategic goal is to be, to make the world's best coffee. Well, how do you measure that? They need to be specific targets. We're going to grow sales 20%. We're going to serve 10,000 meals to homeless people. It needs to be something that is very specific and measurable. And then be looking for some strategies that your company indicates. How are they going to make this happen? I mean, it's great to have these lofty vision and mission and strategic goals, but how are they going to get from where they are today to where they want to be tomorrow? And then that also falls into the tactics. How are they going to actually pull it off? They said they're going to do this. How are they going to make that happen? A lot of times it requires funding. So are they going to do an IPO to raise funds? How are they going to generate the revenue? Are they going to partner with another company? What's it going to take to actually bring that about? So some other things to be aware of. We touched briefly on the company goals and objectives, but stakeholder prioritization. And that's something to be aware of as you're reading about your company. Who are their stakeholders and how do they value their stakeholders? Where do the stakeholders fit into all of this? What kind of organizational structures and relationships do they have? Do they have strategic alliances with other companies? What kind of decision models and methodologies do they utilize? Watch for that. Now, not all companies in the write-ups, you're not necessarily going to be able to find that, but if you do, that's a great thing to put in your paper. So just kind of be watching for those keywords. And what resources do they need for this particular product line or the service they're offering? What does it take to make that happen? And is that a scarce commodity or is it readily available? What's their financial history been? Is this a financially shaky company, or do they have do they have a lot of cash? Do they have excellent track record of repaying loans early? How have they performed historically? And then, of course, what's the competitive environment? Who else is doing this? Who are their competitors? Are they winning? Are they losing? Now let's talk a little bit, just cover a couple of definitions. Vision statements. Vision and mission statements, most companies have them, but most companies don't have good ones. In fact, very few companies do have good ones. But as part of your paper, you're going to need to find their mission and vision statements, and you can comment on whether you think it's a good mission and vision statement. So a vision statement. Good way to think of this. It's a very simple, concise statement of where the company, the firm, the organization is going to be at some point in the future. So 10 years from now, we will be the #1 supplier of XYZ. So it's a future that people can look to and they say, yeah, that'd be great. It's not possible today, but they could, it's something to strive for the future. Say, boy, if we could accomplish that, that would be fantastic. Now, mission statement, on the other hand, that's really the why the company exists. The foundation, the values and purpose, what motivates employees to come into work every morning is the mission of the company. So it should be that, we want to be the best provider of services to anyone, regardless of location around the world. It needs to be something that is not really quantifiable, but it conveys passion, some driving force. Here's another way of looking at mission versus vision. So mission is what's wrong with the world, and you're going to fix it. So you've recognized there's a need. There's homeless people. You're going to address it. The vision says, how is the world going to be different 10 years from now because of your efforts as a company? What are you going to change and affect for the future? So I'm going to give you one example of how not to do it. Avon. Okay, here's their mission statement. Way, way, way too many words. Mission and vision statements need to be short, concise, able to convey, a key message. This is just too much detail. And you'll find a lot of vision and mission statements are they're very poorly done. It's really quite amazing. Even today, it's still that issue. So let's look at some other aspects of mission and vision. Vision has a broad appeal, where mission is where we are today, and this is what we're doing. The vision deals with changing, driving to the future. The mission is, again, right now, today, what we're doing and who are we doing it for. Vision inspires and encourages people, gives them faith and hope that the future is going to be better. Mission statements are concrete. This is today. This is who we are. This is what drives us. And again, vision is aspirational. Those high ideals, those lofty goals. So, does this really matter? Does it make any difference? Why are we including this in the paper? Well, let me give you an example of two companies. Motorola and Zenith were both big players in the early days of television, but they had very different statements as to what their purpose was. Motorola, they're applying technology to benefit the public. Zenith, develop and sell television sets. Okay, so where are Motorola and Zenith today? Motorola, because of the wording of theirs, that they were going to use technology to benefit the public, it allowed them to branch out into phones, computer monitors, handheld radios, and just a plethora of products that benefit the general public. Zenith doesn't exist anymore. Years ago, they were purchased by LG, but LG did not want their products. All LG bought was their engineering staff. So because they had hemmed themselves in with a narrow, mission statement, they missed out on the changes in the marketplace. So yeah, vision and mission statements really do make a difference in companies. But your mission and vision can't stand alone. you have to have a strategy. So this is another thing you should be looking for in your analysis of your company. What's the strategy that the company is using? And that strategy, I like the last bullet here, it gives a coherent plan for realizing the mission and vision statements. Where do values come into all of this? Well, first off, we should say, what are values? Basically, values are beliefs that guide your actions and decisions. The most fundamental, you could say, it's the right and wrong. The value of the company is it's wrong to mislead consumers. It's wrong to say that your car will get 30 miles per gallon when it will only get 20 miles per gallon. It's those principles and standards and qualities. And I love this quote by Roy Disney. It's not hard to make decisions once you know what your values are. And that's very true. And so an important part of your paper should be, see if you can figure out what the values of the organization are. Now, they may actually include statements about what their values are. And if so, that's great. But otherwise, you may have to kind of infer what that organization's values are. But it is an important part of the analysis you're going to do on the company is to understand what that culture is, what they believe in, what they value. So how does this all tie into the paper? Before you identify a problem, you need to learn about your company. And that's all I've just been talking about: mission, vision, values. Understand the company. Now, you're going to push back and say, but you couldn't find, your company doesn't have a vision statement. And that could be true. So in that case, what you want to do is look for statements like what we do, who we are, what we believe. Look for those wordings that give you a clue as to where they think they're going to be in the future, what it is they're passionate about. And so you may have to kind of create a mission and vision statement for your company based on what you read. I say probably 90% of companies have some form of vision and mission statement, but some of them, like Avon's, may be worthless, and you may have to look to see what they talk about in order to infer what those statements are. But come up with a good, clear, concise mission and vision statement for your company. By all means, cite it if you find it in materials. If you have to infer it, be sure and say so in your paper. Say, based on this article or the research you did, if you were hired by the company to write their mission and vision statement, this is what you would say. So let me know whether you're quoting the company or whether you're inferring what it is. So sometimes it's really easy to find. This is Nike's website. Bingo! There's their mission. Okay, that's an easy one. Another place that you can look for is in the annual report. Starbucks, this happens, the screenshot was from their 2012 annual report, but virtually every company's annual report at some point in the annual report will talk about their mission and vision statement. Now, I warn you, annual reports can be 400 to 500 pages long. So take advantage of the library's resource tools to search for so that they can point you to page 394 in the annual report. Otherwise, it's a lot of searching to do to find it. Another key aspect that is important to understand about your company is who is the company responsible to. This statement gets quoted a lot. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And that is true whether you're talking about a nonprofit or a profit organization. The organization itself is responsible to stakeholders. And it's important to understand who are those stakeholders. Another thing that's come up, and I would expect to see in your analysis and of the context, what's going on with your company is the concept of sustainability, and that's both environmental and social sustainability. That's an expectation of companies. So what are the elements of that, and how does that affect your company? And as you see here, society, workplace, environment, those are all elements of what is called social or corporate social responsibility. And really starting from the 50s, this concept has gained a lot of acceptance, and it continues to evolve and broaden to include a lot of areas, from product safety. You shouldn't get hurt by a product. You shouldn't be deceived by advertising. Employees should be treated reasonably. Affirmative action, environmental sustainability, being ethical. Environmental sustainability. Since we have Intel in our backyard, I will tell you, because I did some work in that industry, that the process of making an integrated circuit uses some of the most hazardous chemicals known to man. There's one particular acid that is so deadly, a single drop on your skin, the back of your hand, and you will be dead in moments. But if you go out to Hillsboro, to the Intel facility there, it's gorgeous. It looks like a park, because they take environmental sustainability very seriously. Even though they deal with some really nasty stuff, they go to great lengths to make sure it doesn't impact the environment. Now, you see a completely different story if you go over and look at an integrated circuit manufacturer in China. There are vast areas of China where the environment has been totally destroyed by the waste from their semiconductor industry. Ethical behavior. A couple years ago, we had the scandal with VW cheating on their emissions testing. So these are all important elements, again, to look at. How seriously is your company taking CSR? Did you find anything where they talk about this and talk about their responsibilities? It's much more than just the bottom line. So again, what does this have to do with problem solving? Well, because of CSR, we have a lot more stakeholders. It's not just the owners, employees, and stockholders that are stakeholders now. We have the community. We have a lot of different people that are relevant stakeholders. And so when you're coming up with a solution to your problem, you have to be thinking about everyone that is impacted by it, not just the bottom line. And so one of the things you should indicate in your paper is who are all the stakeholders, and from the company's perspective, how do they prioritize them? So here are the questions you can ask yourself as you're reading about your company. Who are the stakeholders? How much do they have? What are the challenges the firm faces with it? Are there economic, ethical, responsibilities to the stakeholders? Those are all relevant questions to be looking at when you're reading about the company. Okay, let's take a brief pause here in the lecture and put up the password for the quiz this week. So you can see the password is mission, and it is case sensitive, so jot it down because you will need that for to be able to take the quiz number 2. Instead of just the traditional way of thinking of the bottom line, which would be here, profit. Really, one way you can look at it is it's profit, but it's also people. So the employees, your community, the people that live around your company, and then, of course, the planet with the idea of sustainability. So it's kind of nice. You got the 3 P's there. Or here's a further way of looking at it, that in the bottom line, we've got the owners of the company, the people that purchase from the company, the employees, the community, and others that are impacted by the efforts of our company. But the key understanding here is that stakeholders, it's a much broader term today. And when you're looking at your problem and solution, you need to keep that in mind as to how your proposed solution impacts all of the stakeholders. So other elements of context, really important is a SWOT analysis. So I'm expecting you to provide some sort of graphic. Now, sometimes you'll find that there's been a SWOT prepared by someone else. I expect you to look at what they have created, what they have said, and then create your own SWOT chart based on what you believe. Don't just do a copy and paste. Create your own chart and don't just copy all the wording that they have. I want you to, you can use that as a reference, but I want you to take everything that you've read and update that information to provide what you believe to be a good SWOT analysis is. And a good SWOT table will have 3 to 4 bullets in each of the categories. And I do expect, there's all kinds of different pre-built templates. Just do a search on the internet for SWOT template so that you can put it into a nice graphical format. It doesn't have to be this particular one. This is just showing you, though, that I'm not looking for just a heading and text underneath it, in a Word document. It needs to be displayed in some sort of a table fashion like this. Another part of the analysis with your SWOT is the competitive analysis, and that can oftentimes involve charts like this. And that's where I indicated last week, I really like Statista because you can get all kinds of detailed information. How has, in this case, Motorola revenues compared with, Microsoft's business, and, here's breakdown by product lines down there. So you can get all kinds of information that you can display graphically like this to show how they're doing in a competitive environment. And then, as I mentioned, the annual report is a wealth of information. I'm expecting you to do some financial analysis. What do their sales look like? Are they growing? What's their bottom line profitability, on the balance sheet? Are they growing? Are they taking on more debt? What's going on? So expect to see some financial analysis there of revenue, costs, overall profitability. And that's it for this week. So there's a lot that goes into that context and situation analysis for this week's paper. If you have any questions, by all means, contact me at your earliest convenience.